the entire contemporary self-help movement is an attempt to find their father.
These young men, there be the criticisms to them, they feel like are totally unjustified because that reality that I can work for the summer or pay off my school, they don't even want to play the game because they don't see the upside in participating in it. And the entire society is feminizing us. The chemicals in the food is feminizing us. Everything's feminizing us. And there's very few role models to look up to fight against it.
15 to 20 years of smoking weed, playing video games, and jerking off to porn is not a really good preparation for life.
Men, metaphorically speaking, are the castle walls. And so women and children are the jewels. We define boundaries. We define the borders of things, and we are erect, and we stand, and we protect. And as we look at gender ideology, the dissolution of national boundaries, the dissolution of difference between man and animal, female, male, all these things are actual spiritual and much deeper metaphysical attacks on distinctions and boundaries themselves, which is the ultimate fight against masculinity, which is ratcheting up. It's like the men then, especially in the Western world, are the frogs in the pot. The heating up, the temperature is that all the boundaries that maintain order are dissolving, creating more and more chaos and a lack of self-identity. And so that's then you get the neo-pagans, because the easiest way is just to revert back to, okay, I have a European identity. I'm interested in German paganism. I'm interested in Nordic paganism. I'm interested in Druidism now, because there's a sort of immutable identity in regards to who I am and my ethnicity.
There is some of that, and it also has, some really macho kick-ass images of God.
Yeah.
Which I think, sort of the constant gentle Jesus, meek and mild, really is, in some of its Protestant expression especially, is so saccharine. If that's what I was presented with, if that was my only introduction to Christianity, I might not be Christian myself.
Right.
It's just kind of icky.
Right. One of the last refuges then of masculine Christianity is, I would argue, orthodoxy.
Oh, yeah.
And finding for young men then, whether it be the neo-paganism, they sort of become their own priests. But the real search these young men are on is the submission to an authentic authority, which ultimately is God, which then is ultimately Christ, which is ultimately then the priesthood of orthodoxy. And so maybe you can speak then to the cultural phenomenon that you think is catalyzing these young men coming to the Orthodox Church that you're then dealing with and also reaching out to.
All right. What I'm seeing, or the way that I'm hearing it and have sort of formulated it, is that, as you say, life is chaotic. Mm-hmm. The world is chaotic. It's unsure. As you talk about a dissolution of boundaries, I think that's absolutely true. And just to riff very theologically for a second, the very act of creation in Genesis 1 and 2 is precisely the articulation of boundaries and distinctions between things.
Right.
So it is a fundamentally spiritual battle here, and it's directed mostly against the logos.
Right.
Because the logos is the word that distinguishes and makes differences, while the spirit is the unity that holds everything back together. So I think it's precisely a revolt against Christ. But that is, by the way, because I think a lot of young men they've experienced chaos. There's not been good boundaries. There's not been good structure. They are looking for that in their lives. And as they where I'm seeing a lot of young men, 25 to about 33, 34, somewhere in there, they've sort of successfully launched. It's not a failure to launch. I mean, in a few cases, I think that is. You still get the, sort of the mean guy, who's laying in his parents' basement, playing video games, jerking off to porn, covered in crusty tissues and Cheetos dust. I mean, that's, we make fun of that because, alas, there is a little bit of truth to it.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah. But for most guys I think are doing okay, but they know there's something missing, and. And I think sort of my current thinking is that they're not able to get from late adolescence into early adulthood. And part of it, if I can speak sort of in mythic or mythopoetic terms for a moment, they really are just exactly as you say. They're looking for the Father, ultimately for the Heavenly Father. But I think more immediately, Dad 2.0.
Right.
Because if you think about it, living in the basement. What is it all? Living in the basement, a dark, enclosed place where all of your needs are taken care of, all of your needs are met,
Right.
very comfortable. Sounds rather like a womb.
Yeah, it's an archetypal womb.
It's an archetypal womb,
Yep.
which is also a tomb because you'll die there if you don't ever get out.
Oh,
Okay.
great point. Yep.
You know, but it's a womb. There's still a matter, there's still some aspect of needing to be born, of stepping out of what's comfortable and old, what's ordinary and warm and comfy, into something that's scary and new. And they're having trouble making that leap. And so they're looking for help with that. In fact, I think the entire contemporary self-help movement is an attempt to find their father and to get over this lump, looking for some way to learn how to be responsible, how to be autonomous, how to take control of your own life,
Right.
and how to live that to the fullest. Because, too many are the whole participation trophy ethos, so where nothing was really expected of young people. And I don't say that to lay any kind of blame. I'm not blaming mom or dad or absent father. I'm not saying that young people have been lazy. There's no sense to lay any kind of blame any there. It's just a situation that sort of the ethos or the culture that's kind of been there. Right. And so when, young men step up and want to live a life, or a lot of the single young men who come to my parish, they're really of an age where they say, really like to settle down and really where are all of the women? Right. Because I've had like 2 women come to the church and like nearly 24 young men, and they're, the men are grossly outnumbering the women. Yep. But they want to get married and they're not sure how. Their relationship skills are not there. Their social skills are sometimes lacking. They're a little awkward. Sometimes they're doing real well financially. They've got their degree. They've been through college, starting their jobs, maybe entry-level salaries, maybe huge college debt. So a lot of guys are operating on, you're already got like 1 strike against you at least, coming out of the gate.
Right.
And so I think a lot of these things sort of come together and they sort of realize they need help. And then when they get into the world, they realize everything is twice as hard, takes twice as long, and costs twice as much to get done.
Right. And
I think a lot of guys just sort of, my God, I had no idea it was this rough. I am not prepared to operate in this world.
And then the rhetoric from the boomer generation who, I went to school, I worked during the summer and paid off my year of tuition. Well, that was possible. 1, when the dollar was worth more. 2, when tuition was $6,000 for a year, you could do that. But now then these young men, there be the criticisms to them they feel like are totally unjustified because that reality that I can work for the summer, pay off my school, or I don't, they don't even want to play the game because they don't see the upside in participating in it.
That's right. And the what is it? The juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Right.
I'll date myself. When I started college in 1979, you could attend the University of Texas at Austin for $4 a credit hour. Wow. Swear to God, $4 a credit hour. Wow. So any course would cost you $12 to take.
That's crazy.
I mean, there's you can't even relate to that nowadays.
Right. Yeah.
But such is the world we're in. Right. So I think there is a real looking for, for, as I say, Dad 2.0, I think a real need for mentors, a real need for adult men to realize that the younger guys still need something. And I've sort of reached the point in my life where I say, okay, I'm comfy with myself. I've got enough self-assurance. I've got enough experience under my belt where I think I can speak with a little bit of authority and help these guys out. And so that's kind of what I've been trying to do on the social media and put forth this persona. So, I very often say on my little coffee talks, stuff you should have learned from your dad or your granddad.
Right.
And, and guys are eating it up.
But that's been a systematic attack. I mean, you look at the first experiment in 1964 with welfare in the black community, that the women got paid to have children and not have men in the home. And so that has basically been an experiment that now is run for the entire nation at large now. Yes. And so, I mean, I would imagine many young men that you probably deal with didn't even grow up with dad because they got divorced at some point and they spent majority of their time with their mother. And then the entire society is feminizing us. The chemicals in the food is feminizing us. Everything's feminizing us. And there's very few role models to look up to fight against it.
It's true. It's I wouldn't want to be 20 again for all the tea in China, or have to face the dating market nowadays.
Right.
I really feel for guys. I really do. And especially with issues like chronic masturbation, addictive pornography, and that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Look, we hit puberty at 13. Most guys are not even able to get married or even thinking about settling down till they're 30. What are we supposed to do for 17 to 20 years when men are at their sexual peak, at their physical, peak, and yet there's no opportunity for release? I have no answer to that. I appreciate that it is a huge problem, and the church really needs to step into its role fully as a hospital. I don't use that lightly, but really to bring out all of the means available to us, sacramentally, iconographically, scripturally, everything, in order to provide a place of healing for the guys who have been caught in this stuff for so long. It's been a commonplace for me to say, so I'll just go ahead and say it here. Yeah, 15 to 20 years of smoking weed, playing video games, and jerking off to porn is not a really good preparation for life.
Right.
And, guys are kind of coming up to that and hitting it and are not really sure what to do. So they start looking around. They start looking at the church. They start looking at men's work. Nobody comes to men's work except in pain. And I will lay you odds that no one comes to Orthodoxy who's not in pain in some way.
Right.
And so we have the walking wounded who are coming in our doors, dragging their guts behind themselves, and a real sense of compassion for where these guys are coming from, to understand what a seeker is and what he's looking for,